5:47 a.m. January 20th, 2026, Crimea. The ground shakes as 8 experimental RM-48U missiles roar into the sky at Mach 6. Right behind them, a Hypersonic Zircon lances through the atmosphere at Mach 9, aimed directly at the heart of Ukraine's energy grid. In the Kyiv command center, the Patriot radar locks on, yet the signature is a distorted, recycled ghost on the screen. If the PAC-3 interceptors miss, the capital's heating system collapses. But if they fire in decoy, they might just be wasting a $5 million missile on a piece of $5,000 Russian junk. Ukraine is facing a tense situation with collapse so imminent that no one believes they can turn things around. This isn't just a random strike. It's a cold-blooded tactical algorithm designed to push Ukraine's defense to a breaking point. The opening move isn't even missiles, it's a swarm of 20 drone units buzzing toward Kyiv and Vinnytsia. They just are the digital noise designed to force the Patriot's Aegis-linked computers to burn processing power on thousands of junk trajectories. It's the military equivalent of a massive DDoS attack intended to lag the system before the real heavy hitters arrive. The Ukrainians are not being complacent because they understand all too well the decoy tactics they themselves have used. And Russia has proven that. As the radar screens in Kyiv begin to flicker with this artificial clutter, the second layer of the Russian trap drops. 15 Iskander and S-300 ballistic units scream down from the stratosphere at Mach 7. Each one is a 5-ton kinetic hammer closing the gap at over 2 miles per second. The structural pressure on the defense grid is immense. Every second an operator spends hesitating is another mile of ground lost. But while the Ukrainian crews are sweating over these high-priority threats, the Kremlin's real poison pill is already cruising through the mid-atmosphere. 8 experimental RM-48U units are trailing the main wave. To the Russian high command, this is a masterstroke of budget warfare. They've taken thousands of decommissioned 5 V-55 air defense units hardware that belongs in a museum and rootkitted them with cheap off-the-shelf GLONASS modules. Moscow's logic is cold and corporate. Our recycled junk costs $5,000. Your Western interceptor costs $5 million. It's a ruthless game of return on investment. They are essentially sending Amazon-returned garbage to force Ukraine to fire away its gold standard PAC-3 supply. In the Kyiv command center, the silence is shattered by the scream of Aegis-linked alarms. The operators don't have the luxury of hesitation. As 15 Iskander and S-300 ballistic hammers drop from the stratosphere at Mach 7, the Ukrainian Patriot batteries belch fire. The night sky turns into a chaotic theater of kinetic energy. PAC-3GEMT interceptors each a $5 million A student of Western engineering streak upward to meet the threat. The first contact is a series of blinding flashes. A cluster of Russian Iskanders is vaporized midair, reduced to a rain of glowing titanium confetti. 2 of the RM-48U ghosts are swatted out of the sky by a NASAMS battery, their primitive guidance systems no match for the precision of the AIM-120. For a moment, it looks like the defense might hold. I know you understand perfectly well that if that were all, the defenses in Kyiv would certainly hold out. Sadly, Russia thinks so too, so it's time the apex predator emerges, the Zircon. Traveling at Mach 9, it's moving so fast that friction turns the surrounding air into a shroud of superheated plasma. To a radar, it's not just a missile anymore, it's a blinding thermal ghost that swallows radio waves. It's literally hiding behind a wall of fire. Before the first Ukrainian interceptor can even clear the tube, the Zircon impacts a core infrastructure hub in Vinnytsia. The result is an immediate systemic shock. A massive thermal event ripples through the grid, causing an instant loss of load balance. As the lights flicker across the capital, the Russian strategy seems flawless. Saturate the sky with junk, drain the enemy's bank account with decoys, and use the hypersonic spear to pierce the heart of the city's survival. The fire at the Vinnytsia hub is a blinding beacon of the stakes. But for the crews in Kyiv, there isn't a single millisecond to mourn. The radar screens are still hemorrhaging data. The second wave of Iskanders is screaming through the terminal phase, and those 8 RM-48U ghosts are still cluttering the engagement zone, mimicking the signature of high-value targets. The Ukrainian operators realize they are being baited into a catastrophic financial trap. They are currently using a gold-plated sledgehammer to swat at flies, and the A-student Patriot inventory is dropping toward a critical threshold. Simultaneously, a tactical pivot is initiated. This is where the Ukrainian FrankenSAM program, a high-tech Frankenstein's monster of military engineering, enters the fray. Think of it as taking the sophisticated sensors of a modern Western missile and hot-wiring them into an old Soviet Buk or S-300 launcher. It's the military version of a custom-built PC designed to perform one specific task, neutralizing the recycled Russian trash without burning through the $5 million PAC-3 supply. Now, if you appreciate this kind of field expedient engineering as much as I do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. It's the best way to stay in the loop for every tactical breakdown we drop. These hybrid units begin to engage the RM-48U swarm with ruthless efficiency. The air is filled with the roar of older motors carrying new brains. However, even this creative firmware update has its limits. The sheer volume of the Russian kinetic surge is pushing the processing power of the Delta Battlefield Management System to its absolute red line. Every intercepted RM-48U is a tactical win, yet the strategic cost remains staggering. The textbook air defense doctrine is hitting a physical ceiling. The launchers can't reload fast enough to keep up with the incoming Amazon return missiles. Behind the scenes, the GUR Ukraine's intelligence directorate is working at a frantic pace. They aren't just watching the radar, they are packet-sniffing the electronic signatures of the RM-48US based on fragments recovered from a failed Russian test launch weeks prior. They've identified a specific stutter in the Russian command link, a digital fingerprint that allows the Delta system to prioritize the real Iskander threats over the recycled decoys. It is a desperate race to update the entire national defense grid in real time. Tragically, even with this intelligence-driven efficiency, the Zircon remains an unsolved equation. The plasma shroud around the hypersonic spear continues to baffle the tracking sensors. While the FrankenSAMs are successfully vaporizing the low-end junk, the high-end Iskanders are still leaking through the cracks. Another impact shuddering the outskirts of Kyiv. The grid is failing. The interceptor counts are dwindling and the Russian swarm shows no signs of fatigue. The question is no longer, can they hit back, but how much longer can they afford to? The smoke from the first interceptions hasn't even cleared when the tactical picture in Kyiv begins to dissolve into chaos. Suddenly, the radar screens aren't showing targets anymore. They are showing a blizzard of white noise. Russia has just unleashed the Gerber swarm. These are flying electronic mirrors. By saturating the frequency bands with high-intensity interference, they create a digital whiteout. It's a total DDoS attack of the sky, turning Ukraine's multi-million-dollar Western sensors into very expensive blindfolds. Ironically, those recycled RM-48U missiles chose this exact moment to change their behavior. They stop flying in straight, predictable lines and begin executing pre-programmed ballistic maneuvers. On the screens, they now look identical to high-value Iskander-M missiles. The Ukrainian operators are trapped in a lethal guessing game, ignore the signal, and risk a direct hit or fire a $5 million interceptor at a piece of $5,000 Russian junk. Under the cover of this electronic fog, the inevitable happens. A real Iskander-M hidden behind the Gerber clutter slips through a gap in the defensive bubble. It impacts a critical distribution hub on the outskirts of the capital. The kinetic energy release is massive, shattering the structural integrity of the local grid. In an instant, a cascading systemic failure ripples through the heart of Kyiv. Lights out. Back in the command bunkers of Crimea, the Russian generals are practically celebrating the ROI. To them, this is a corporate victory. They see the frantic activity of the Ukrainian batteries and realize they are trading cheap electronic noise for Ukraine's strategic survival. But amidst this darkness, the hunters are becoming the hunted. While the active Western radars are blinded by the noise, Ukraine's silent sentinels, the Kolchuga-M passive sensors, are perfectly calm. They only listen. The Russian S-400 batteries are currently illuminating the airspace to guide their recycled missiles, essentially shouting their exact GPS coordinates into the night sky. It's like a thief using a high-powered flashlight in a dark room. It helps them see, but it tells everyone exactly where they are standing. Every pulse of that S-400 radar is now being triangulated in real time. The Russian commanders are laughing at Ukraine's dwindling ammo, completely unaware that their own electronic arrogance has just painted a massive X on their foreheads. A young Ukrainian operator, eyes bloodshot from the flickering glare of his console, taps a final sequence into the Delta system. He looks at his commander and nods. It's time to flip the script. While the world thinks Ukraine is drowning in a digital blizzard, they are actually preparing a signature flip. Here is the genius of it. Those recycled Russian RM-48U missiles are so primitive they can't find a target on their own. The Russian S-400 batteries in Crimea are forced to stay on the air, constantly shouting guidance corrections to keep their trash from falling into the sea. To the Kolchuga M passive sensors, that radar signal isn't a threat, it's a homing beacon. Ukraine isn't just watching the radar. They have integrated Western ELINT software to flip the emission. They aren't shooting at the missiles anymore. They are using the missiles as a free GPS service provided by the Kremlin. The irony is staggering. Moscow thought they were sending a lethal message to Kyiv, but they were actually broadcasting their own home address. It's like Russia thought they were sending a fleet of bombers, but they were accidentally sending a FedEx tracking number, and Ukraine is about to deliver a return-to-sender package that Moscow didn't order. Suddenly, just 15 miles off the Crimean coast, the silence of a hidden sea cove is shattered. Ukrainian Special Operations Forces, SOF, who have been lurking in the shadows for 72 hours, activate their pre-positioned swarm. These are customized beaver loitering munitions, and they aren't flying high where the S-400 can see them. They are hugging the waves using AI-driven terrain masking to stay below the radar horizon of the Panzer and Tor defense systems. Inside the S-400 control cabins in Crimea, the Russian crews are still high on their perceived success. They see the blackouts in Kyiv and assume the battle is won. Keep the signal strong, the Russian commander orders, wanting to guide the last wave of RM-48U home. He has no idea that every pulse of his radar is now pulling a swarm of AI-guided hunters directly toward his position. On the Ukrainian side, the atmosphere shifts from desperation to cold, calculated focus. The operator in Kyiv watches the Beaver drone's telemetry as they thread the needle through the Russian coastal defenses. "They gave us the coordinates for free," he whispers with a grim smile. It's the ultimate tactical aha moment. Ukraine has turned Russia's budget warfare into a 1,000,000,000-to-1 tactical blunder. The trash sent to freeze Kyiv is now the very thing that's going to set Crimea on fire. The package is currently 30 seconds from the doorstep, and the Russian generals are about to find out that there is no refuse delivery option. The sky over the Black Sea becomes a graveyard of high-velocity physics. After a 200-mile journey hugging the waves, the Ukrainian loitering munitions finally breach the inner sanctum of Crimea's coastal defense. By the time the Russian Panzer S-1 crews realize the threat isn't a radar ghost but a swarm of kinetic hunters, it's almost too late. Alarms scream in the cramped cabins of the Russian mobile batteries near Yevpatoria. Panic sets in as the Russian operators realize their prestige S-400 system has just been turned into a target by its own guidance signal. The Panzer units open fire in a desperate last-ditch effort. The 30mm cannons spit out a wall of lead tracers, carving bright lines into the pre-dawn mist. It sounds like a mechanical, rhythmic hammering on a massive scale. But these aren't the drones from 2 years ago. Every time a Russian radar locks on the Beaver's onboard AI calculates a countermaneuver in less than 50 milliseconds. It's like a high-frequency trading algorithm, but instead of stocks, it's trading life for kinetic energy. The drones twitch and bank with an agility that defies human reaction time, weaving through the curtain of fire. Then the impact. A Beaver drone slams directly into the heart of an S-400 transporter erector launcher. A massive secondary explosion occurs as the S-400's own sophisticated missiles, the very ones meant to protect the Black Sea, ignite in their tubes. In the Russian command center, the laughter has died. The generals are staring at their monitors in stunned silence as the Black Sea Gate suddenly develops a gaping billion-dollar hole. The air defense umbrella they spent years building is now porous, and the panic is palpable. "How did they get through?" a Russian officer shouts, but the only answer is the crackle of fire from the wreckage. Yet the victory is far from total. On the Ukrainian side, the mood in the Kyiv bunker is one of exhausted tension. They've lost several of their most advanced loitering munitions to the Panzer fire. The energy grid is bleeding and the systemic damage is severe. This is the ultimate deadlock. Russia still has launchers in reserve and could initiate a second wave of RM-48U at any moment. Ukraine has punctured the shield, but they are nearly out of interceptors and their infrastructure is on the brink of a total blackout. Both sides are standing on the edge of a tactical abyss, their resources drained, their nerves frayed. The sun rises over scarred Crimea, and it's time to look at the receipt. This wasn't a clean victory, it was a brutal exchange of high-tech capital. The Kremlin is staring at a $400 million hole in its budget. Two S-400 launchers near Yevpatoria are now just smoldering piles of high-grade titanium scrap. Worse, their Nebo radar, the eyes of the Black Sea, has been effectively neutralized. Ukraine swatted 7 out of 8 RM-48U missiles out of the sky, but the cost was high, burning through a significant inventory of FrankenSAM and NASAM's interceptors. Russia's Black Sea Gate is no longer a shield, it's Swiss cheese. The defensive umbrella is compromised, leaving their remaining fleet vulnerable. However, the cost to Ukraine is visible from space. The Zircon impact in Venezia has triggered a massive systemic energy imbalance. The grid is alive, but it's on life support. The new tech propaganda just evaporated. Moscow tried to rebrand 40-year-old recycled junk as a game changer, but they accidentally turned their own launchers into a FedEx delivery point for Ukrainian drones. Ukraine has proven a simple, lethal truth. It doesn't matter what GPS module Russia sticks on its recycled trash, the fate remains the same. This battle has forced Russia to make a painful choice. They are already pulling their remaining S-400 units back from the coast to the Russian interior, making the Black Sea more contested than ever. There is no total winner here. Russia remains a persistent headache, and Ukraine is still fighting for every kilowatt of energy. The lesson: new tech, same fate. Russia tries to recycle, Ukraine just vaporizes. If you want to see more tactical plot twists like this, hit that like and subscribe button. Bye for now.